This tutorial is about reflexive verbs and reflexive pronouns. What is a reflexive verb? It's a verb that is linked to a special pronoun called a reflexive pronoun. This pronoun serves to reflect the action of the verb back to the performer. That's it to the subject of the sentences. The result is that the subject and the object of the sentences are the same person. Let's see in these sentences. John washes his car. John is the subject, washes is the verb, and car is the object. John as a subject is not the same as the object, so the verb is not reflecting the action of the verb. Therefore, the verb is not a reflexive verb. In these sentences, John washes his face. We have here the same, the subject, the verb, and the object. The subject and the object are the same person. So the verb is reflecting the action of the verb back to the performer. Therefore, the verb is a reflexive verb because the subject and the object are the same person. There is one reflexive verb that we have been using since we start studying Spanish. The verb is llamarse. The meaning is to call oneself. With this question, ¿Cómo se llama usted? The literal translation for this question, it should be, what do you call yourself? How do we answer this question? Me llamo José. I call myself José. Why we don't use this translation in English? Because English do not use reflexive verbs in the way we use in Spanish a reflexive verb. So in English we use the natural translation. What is your name? My name is José. When the verb is reflexive in Spanish, it's easy to recognize because the infinity ends in se. In this example, lavarse, to wash oneself, the ending is se. So any verb in Spanish that ends in se, that verb is a reflexive verb. To learn to conjugate a reflexive verb, we need to learn a different set of pronouns that we call them reflexive pronouns. Those reflexive pronouns are me, te, se, nos, os, se. Myself, yourself, himself, herself, ourself, yourself, themselves. These pronouns are positioned before the verb while the ending se is dropped and the verb is conjugated normally. And the placement of those reflexive pronouns are in the same as we have been placing those direct object pronouns or indirect object pronouns. So we can place them before the conjugated verb, or we can attach them at the end of the infinitive form of the verb. Also, and the present participle. Let's conjugate one verb. the verb lavarse, to wash oneself. So we need the subject pronouns in Spanish and the verb lavarse. As I explained, we have to first drop the ending se and conjugate the verb lavar as any other verb. The first thing we have to do is drop the ending and use the stem, because this verb is a regular verb. Use the stem and use the corresponding endings, because this is the conjugation of the verb lavar in the present tense. Because this verb is reflexive verb, we have to use reflexive pronouns to conjugate this verb. So the conjugation for this verb is yo me lavo, tú te lavas, él, ella, usted se lava, nosotros, nosotras nos lavamos, vosotros, vosotras os laváis, ellos, ellas, ustedes se lavan. The literal translation for this conjugation in English will be I wash myself, you wash yourself, he wash himself, she wash herself, you wash yourself, and so on. So the main purpose of those reflexive pronouns is to show that the action of the verb remains with the subject. So remember, reflexive verbs in Spanish ends with se, and to conjugate a reflexive verb in Spanish, we have to use reflexive pronouns. And reflexive pronouns are placed before the conjugated verb or can be attached at the end of the infinitive form of the verb. Gracias.